So the history of hip hop is very much connected to the Bronx Expressway. When that highway was built, just families were ripped apart financially. It just hurt the Bronx in so many different ways. And so I think a lot of times hip hop gets a bad rep for being, vulgar, for promoting violence and bad things, but really it comes from people who were hurt and impoverished and all of that. And so the graffiti comes from that. The breakdancing comes from that. All of it is born from this struggle. And so I think the art is always reflective of that. As it got bigger is when, they started promoting those kinds of things. In the beginning, it was just telling the story of this is all the bad that's happening around. And it's kind of similar to just the way that highway is, right? That runs all the way down, connecting to I-95 all the way down to Florida, which is good financially for America, but bad for this community, especially when it was first built. And you can kind of say the same thing about hip hop as it's grown. Yeah, my name is Brandon Morel. I go by the artist name, The Symbol. I am a Catholic hip hop artist, born and raised in the Bronx, New York, and a youth minister out in Brooklyn, New York.
You could be the symbol too. In fact, you were made to. Cause you were made yoga.
My music is a big part of my life. It always has been. And so when I came to my Catholic faith, it was only natural.
My style is ordinary, lyrics extraordinary. These songs filled with graciousness, accordinary. I do this for the love, man, you should know already. As I begin in hymns, they're all offertory.
My music is an extension of my prayer life, an extension of the ministry I do and the people I come in contact with. So my morning routine, I wake up pretty early, go make my pre-workout drink, mix it up. Yeah. Then do my morning prayers and just get myself ready for the day as I go work out. Part of the culture of New York City is a lot of movement. It's a lot of noises all around, just showing you that life is happening, whether it's the trains or the sirens or just kids playing outside. And for me, that movement is it's an energy. It's an infectious energy. And a lot of times you hear that in my music. You hear a lot of just the way the beats and the rhythms are going, the way that I'm rhyming really, really fast, is all just a reflection of all of that. So right now we're in Brooklyn, East New York. I grew up in the Bronx, went to school in Harlem, and New York City just has so much culture, so much life, so much energy all around it, different, just people interacting, different ideas. And I know that that's influenced me a great deal in the way that I make my music, in the way that I think, in the way that I speak, respond, my gestures, that's all kind of reflected by the space of where I come from.
So I lift my hands to the sky and I surrender my soul. Said I lift my hands to the sky and I say, Lord, take control. Into your hands I commit my spirit. 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 Oh.
Yeah, I do rap. Wear my do-rag, pants, do-sack, Jesus, the truth's back. My uncle was a DJ, and he recorded my voice at 2 years old saying his drop. You know, to this day, anytime he DJs places, you hear my little kid voice going, DJ Correct. And so I've always been around it. The records, the recording equipment, the blending of sounds. Fast forward to elementary school, and I wrote a rap song to Busta Rhymes, Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See, that beat. Yeah, the teacher loved it. She had me just kind of going from class to class, performing. And from back then, I already knew that was kind of my thing. I had a friend who was into like the Christian hip hop scene, and I was like, okay, well, nobody Catholic is doing this. Maybe there's something I can do with this God. Maybe there's something you could do with this God. And from there just came a crazy idea of like, all right, I'm gonna be a Catholic hip hop artist. My way of reflecting, my way of looking at the world around me, my talents, my skills, my experiences, like all of that is kind of in this music. It's my prayer life. It's all like together in it. You know, I remember my journey here was I was that kid that was, you know, I did my confirmation and sacraments as a kid, but my family wasn't really practicing. It was more just, you know, going through the motions kind of thing. Then, you know, I came in contact with youth ministry as a high school age teen, and you know, I had certain experiences on retreats that I was like, okay, I'm feeling this in adoration. I believed, okay, the Eucharist is real, but I still had a hard time connecting that to my daily life. Literally, like part of my story is, you know, I graduated from high school. I broke up with my high school girlfriend, which there's a lot of things that happened that were negative all throughout that. And I was just like, what do I do next? And I started dating a girl, and the girl was Hindu, and I started asking questions about that. And I met a coworker who was like, he had studied different world religions, and you know, and I started, those brought up other questions. Then I met another coworker who was a Pentecostal youth minister, and like in all of that, it made me search deeper for like what is really true, where am I really seeing God? And I could see hints of God in all these things, but for me, like what was, you know, the fullness of that? But I think for me, it caused me to go deeper, and like deeper within myself, deeper into my prayer life, deeper into reading things like scripture and the catechism. And even in my music, like it's very introspective in many ways.
Each and every day, every moment, every hour, every second pray. There's no way I make it through the day if it wasn't for your humble embrace. I be stressing all that's left of me is ego pride, all the things that I always try to keep inside. Growing pains in my brain, in my heart I cry. Molested in middle school, wanted suicide. Mad at dad, mad at mom, mad at world. As a teen at NYC, so false love in my girl. At 15, the first condom broke. At 17, she was pregnant and my wildest broke. Still, to this day, I'm impatient as ever. I approach each sacrament like, Lord, I'm yours forever. There's absolutely no way to overcome alone the instigating passions in my agonizing soul. So I lift my hands to the sky.
Some people will say they listen to hip hop music, but they wouldn't necessarily say that they're a part of hip hop culture. Like I grew up, most parents say, turn it off. My mom played like Hot 97 in the morning, which is the hip hop radio station here, driving me to school in the morning. You know, my parents grew up in Harlem in the projects, and my father was into like graffiti art and customizing jeans and sneakers and the fashion aspect of it. Literally, like a big part of my cultural identity is connected to hip hop culture. I would take it a step further of saying that hip hop is at the core of American culture. Like it transfers into so many other aspects of things. In fact, if you even talk about hip hop music, like what music comes from America, right? Like most musical genres came from somewhere else. Most musical instruments came from somewhere else. And you could say hip hop is like really just genuinely American music that was founded and created here and was born from the reality of the people that are living here. And so when I look at things like Vatican II and, you know, the documents, especially like Gaudium et Spes, not only am I part of hip hop culture, but I realize bringing it to faith means utilizing that to bring other people to Christ, just like I've experienced it. So I had this song named Basilica.
You can catch me in my city walking diddy back. Bass trap straight hot, watching Millie rock. Feet moving through the streets till Achilles back. Bringing peace, spirit heat up the city block.
My whole life I've recognized and noticed like culture, art has been all around me in the city that I live in. And so when I wrote the song, it's actually kind of like an extension. There's a song I wrote, idea of building up the church. But the idea kind of progressed when I continued building it in years. That like, no, I want my entire city, I want the entire neighborhood, the community I live in to look like this representation of the church and culture and art.
I got that 5-5 spirit in me. Virgin Mary, cause them angels, they be visiting me. Wearing many hats, figurative and literally. Anointing on my life, so they can't be dealing with me. Sharing grace in my stage is the black. Chicken stack down the slice all around the clock. Keep it real, share a meal, keep the game on lock. All we need is love, not drama from the cops. Whoa, they say the sound too sinister. From an urban missionary youth minister. Keep it real, we ain't living in the cinema. Walking with the people when we building a basilica.
The inspiration behind the song is just that. It's literally like, what does it look like to be an urban missionary? What does it look like to walk the streets of New York City and just express and live your faith on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, you should know how it goes. All these demons out here, they've been fighting for our souls. Bringing faith to the culture seems only Lord knows. I'm building up the temple, boy, so I suppose I'ma make my whole city a basilica. I'ma make my whole city a basilica. I'ma make my whole city a basilica. Now everybody pray. Basilica, basilica, basilica. One time, hands high for basilica. Basilica, basilica. Now everybody pray. Basilica. Yeah, the time is now. Once the angels hit the trumpet sound, you should know that it's going down.
You should know that it's going down.
Yeah, the time is now. Once them angels hit the trumpet sound, you should know that it's going down.
You should know that it's going down.
I'ma make my whole city a basilica. Church ain't just a building, also people that we building up for way too long. Mediocre do a minimum, attract more bees with the honey, not the vinegar. Sometimes I feel like Jonah inside of Nineveh, cause I'm in the culture capital of America. I'm not saying change the teaching, the curriculum, simply reinvent the ways that it's presented, bruh. I'm talking the heavenly city. All creation was a temple in the beginning. We were oh so proud when the oxes working for pennies. Let's take this beyond the four walls, you feel me? Whoa, they say the sound too sinister. From an urban missionary youth minister. Keep it real, we ain't living in the cinema. Walking with the people when we building a basilica.
And looking back, I realized that I grew up in a very like Afrocentric culture. Like we were exposed to different things that were, from the diaspora in different ways. And so a lot of that like kind of translates to like a lot of my cultural expression, right? The drums and the rhythms and the sounds and a lot of, speaking of hip hop, New York hip hop it's all about bars and wordplay. It's all about how clever and creative you can be. And sometimes for an outsider, it seems confusing because it's so artistic. It's like, there's words that we use and we're being poetic and it's just in a natural sentence. So like for me, a lot of my music is very like technical in the aspects of like the wordplay. I'm breaking down words, I'm breaking down sounds that sometimes there's a surface level meaning and then there's like these deeper layers of meaning as you sit and sift through it that you can find over time. I'm kind of measuring it against all of these experiences and all these sounds, and it comes out in this writing and it comes out in these beats and it comes out in these samples, and it's the cross blend of all of that, which to me is what our prayer life looks like. It's we take all these things and we bring it in and we bring it before God and go, what do you want to do with this, right? I like how Augustine, I think it's Sermon 272 would talk about how like the Eucharist is the makeup of the many grains of wheat coming together. And I would say like my music is that. It's all these little grains of knowledge, grains of experience, grains of just thought that are kind of coming together, and it'll make this song or this project at different times in my life. So a monumental moment when I was creating music, I have been creating music my whole life, was when I did this project called Golden.
You could be the symbol too.
I'd fully committed myself to saying everything I do is gonna be for my Catholic faith. I'm gonna live my music, my art, everything. I had read something and it said something about like the process of gold and it going through like this refiner's fire, and I just happened to open the laptop and I was just like playing with sounds, like clicking keys, and these little chords came out and it just had like this shine, so to speak, the sound to it. And this concept, Golden, came to me.
My style is ordinary, lyrics extraordinary. These songs filled with graciousness, ordinary. I do this for the love, man, you should know already. As I begin in hymns, they're all offertory. I am not divine, man, only reason shining is to show them the light also dwells inside them. Rulers in this pride, man, they keep getting violent. When I tell them they got to lay down their lives,
I was in between stuff, work, financially, and this was like really a statement for me of like, not only am I committing to my faith or living my faith, but I don't want to be just to like walk past Catholic. I really want to live this in a sense that represents holiness, that represents being golden. And it was this idea of like showing like we seek material wealth, but then what we need to be seeking is that deeper wealth that we have treasure stored up in heaven, right?
Kinda crazy, never thought this be my calling. 11 had dreams of going to the rucker ballin'. Hot sauce on them N1 Knicks, safe was my hero. Wanted to break some ankles, then toss the alley for real though.
That project, you know, was really the one that launched me in a sense of, I was already traveling a little bit locally, but I started traveling to different events. And that's when I started interacting with more young people. From that is even where I realized like, oh wait, God, I think you want me to be doing youth ministry full time, and this music is kind of an extension of that.
Track right here's a free throw. Quite simple what I speak, yo. Never boring with scoring, still leaving these cats on zero. Do you know what I mean now? Dancing, defeating evil. What I'm saying is playing games, no templates you can preload. We are all unique in the eyes of Heavenly Father. If we just be ourselves, we will finish just how we started. Innocent, pure beauty, and holy is how we're made to be golden, reflecting the sun's rays all day.
All right. Welcome to the youth ministry office. This is where I just get things prepared, meet with teens. Just sometimes they hang out after youth group nights, and there's a bunch of them here on beanbag chairs and eating chips and making a mess. Shooting in the basketball hoop in the front of the door. Sometimes a lot of people say that it's difficult to connect to these kids. And I guess I disagree. And maybe I think the music has a big part to do with that. I think that has something to do with the music and the fashion and the art and just the expression. And so I think it helps with leveraging, connecting to them because I'm a part of their world. So I think music is an essential part of ministry. One, it creates the atmosphere and how young people come in. And I think me being attuned to the sounds and beats and styles that they like only helps the relationship, right? One, you know, from youth minister to the young person coming in, but also their relationship to God, because I get to stand in that place. I'm a firm believer that God wants us to be authentically who he made us to be. So I think it's necessary in showing the beauty of who God is, and also when Jesus says, go make disciples of all nations, I think this is a certain nation that's been left out. Every time I create something, anytime I go before a group of people, I represent a whole community. One of the things I love about our Catholic faith is how documented it is, right? We have relics and things from those who were devoted to living this faith, right? We have things like the Diary of St. Faustina, right? And we get insight into her inner thoughts. These are the things I'm genuinely reflecting on. These are the things I'm reading in my Bible. These are the things that I'm go to a retreat and I hear a message. I'm going back and I'm reflecting on that. This is something, as I'm around people, I'm praying about this in the morning, and then it comes out in song, right? It's playing in the back of my head, you know, throughout the day and everything I go. And then when I go and write it, or when I finally go and record it, when people get to hear it, you're getting a little insight into just kind of me living my daily testimony, right, of how I walk with Jesus every day. And so that's how I say it's like an extension of my prayer life. You know, even though there is a mental part to it, there is a skill part to it, it's really an introspective time that I sit with God, and the art kind of is birthed from that. I think when I first started doing this, the goal was, I'm gonna be there on every conference, and, you know, I would tour and, you know, have a lot of streaming numbers and videos, and eventually cross over to the secular world and be able to be a voice for our Catholic faith in the secular world, you know, be on other, you know, non-denominational stages and be a voice for the Catholics amongst other Christians. And I think God over time has been taking time to purify the pride attached to that. You know, because sometimes that spotlight is, although it can be good, although it can highlight, it's not me that people really should be showing up for. Really, God is just calling me to live in the world and minister to the people he's put in my path. Ultimately, I just want to be that living witness. And I'm hoping that in that process, especially when it comes to like my local ministry and I'm able to connect with people, that I can provide areas where other young people can express themselves genuinely for who they are, and then be more living witnesses and testimonies, you know, everywhere it goes. And, you know, in the process, just feed my family. In the process, just pay the bills, and just have the opportunity to continue to create, you know, as I go through the things in my own life.
Yeah, you should know how it goes. All these demons out here, they've been fighting for our souls, bringing faith to the culture. See, only Lord knows I'm building up the temple, boy, so I suppose I'ma make my whole city a basilica. I'ma make my whole city a basilica. I'ma make my whole city a basilica. Now everybody pray. Basilica, basilica, basilica. One time hands high for basilica. Basilica, basilica. Now everybody pray. Basilica. Yeah, the time is now. Once the angels hit the trumpet sound, you should know that it's going down.
You should know that it's going down.
Yeah, the time is now. Once the angels hit the trumpet sound, you should know that it's going down.
You should know that it's going down.
Cool.
Feeling good?
Yeah. Got a lot off my chest. Thank y'all for having me. Thank you for listening to the story. Appreciate y'all. Deuces.
I'ma make my whole city a basilica. Now everybody pray. Basilica. I'ma make my whole city a basilica. I'ma make my whole city a basilica. I'ma make my whole city a basilica. Now everybody pray. Basilica.
Are you searching for fulfillment? Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.